Welcome to another deep dive. Today, we're going to be exploring the fascinating world of ferns in Taiwan.
Oh, very cool.
Now, you might be thinking, ferns? Really? But trust me, this is going to be way more interesting than just talking about some pretty plants.
Yeah, I'm intrigued.
And to help us dive deep, we're going to be using this academic paper that we found that really gets into how ferns are actually deeply woven into Taiwanese culture, history, and even childhood memories.
Oh, wow. Okay. I'm ready to learn.
Yeah, me too. So right off the bat, this paper hit us with some pretty incredible statistics.
Okay.
Did you know that Taiwan actually has the highest density of fern species in the world?
Really? I had no idea.
Yeah, somewhere between 600 and 700 different types.
That's wild. So where do you even find that many ferns?
Well, apparently they're practically everywhere. You'll find them clinging to mountainsides, thriving near waterways, popping up along roadsides. They're even on rooftops.
Wow. So they're not just like a pretty backdrop. They're a major part of the landscape.
Exactly. And they've been woven into daily life for generations in Taiwan.
Okay. So like how? How do they use ferns in their everyday lives?
Well, our source talks about a great example, the tree fern. In the Hakka language, they call it lugi. The Hakka people are a really fascinating group with a unique culture and language.
Right.
And what sets the tree fern apart is its sturdy trunk,
Okay.
which indigenous peoples have traditionally used as like a building material.
Wow. Hold on. So you're telling me these ferns aren't just delicate little fronds. They can actually be used for construction.
Yeah.
Wow. Were there any specific structures made from tree ferns that are particularly impressive or historically important?
Well, I don't know if we have specific examples from way back when, but I mean, just the fact that they used it for construction at all, I think that highlights their versatility,
Totally.
and the resourcefulness of the people.
Right.
And actually, that connection to building continues today. You know those snake wood products that you see in gardening centers?
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Those are made from the tree fern's aerial roots.
Really?
Yeah.
I never would have guessed that.
Hmm.
That's really cool. So we've got ferns as building materials, but our source also mentions ferns as food,
I know, right?
edible ferns.
Yeah, I was surprised too.
Tell me more about that.
Okay, so Taiwanese cuisine actually incorporates quite a few different ferns.
Oh, interesting.
And each one kind of tells a story. Take gigid, for example.
Hmm.
It's also known as ditch fiddlehead or the over-the-ditch vegetable, which I think kind of gives you a hint about where it grows.
Right, yeah.
It's a common ingredient in Hakka cooking,
Oh.
often stir-fried with preserved mustard greens and ginger.
That sounds delicious.
I know, right? I
Right.
never tried that one, but it makes me want to. Is it hard to find outside of Taiwan?
It might be, yeah.
Eh.
It might be a bit of a specialty item, but I think the flavors are worth seeking out for sure.
Yeah. And there's another fern, you might find it in restaurants, stir-fried mountain asparagus.
Oh, right.
Yeah, so next time you're enjoying a Taiwanese meal, you might just be tasting a bit of fern history, which is cool.
I love that. I'm really starting to see ferns in a whole new light.
Me too, me too. All this talk about ferns is bringing back some fun childhood memories.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, do you remember those cute little fuzzy golden souvenirs that you'd see on trips?
Oh, yeah, you mean those golden dog hair ferns?
Yeah. Yeah. Those are made from the fern's rhizomes,
Oh, well, really?
which are basically underground stems. They act as the plant's lifeline.
Oh, interesting.
But get this, they weren't just for show.
Really?
They also had a surprising practical use.
Wait, what else could they do? I mean, they're just cute little fuzzy things, right?
Well, believe it or not, they were used to staunch bleeding from cuts and scrapes.
Oh, wow. So like a natural first aid kit?
Yeah, right there in those little adorable souvenirs.
That's incredible. Okay, so we've got ferns as building materials, ferns on the menu, ferns as tiny medics.
Mm.
What else is there?
Well, let's talk about the pheasant egg fern, or singid in Hakka.
Oh, okay.
This one has a particularly charming connection to childhood.
All right.
So it gets its name from the shape of its spore clusters, which resemble a kidney.
Oh, right.
But the Hakka people have another name for it, sijilan. It means pheasant egg.
Wait, why pheasant egg? What do pheasants have to do with ferns?
It's all about the plant's egg-shaped translucent tubers. Think of them as underground food storage for the plant.
Okay, I see.
And kids used to love searching for these tubers, and they had this fun little ritual. They'd call out "su-zu-zu," imitating chicken calls,
Oh, it's cute.
believing this would help them find the tubers, which they called zuzulon.
So these pheasant eggs were like hidden treasure for kids to discover.
Yeah, exactly. And it wasn't just a game, right? These tubers were actually a source of food.
Oh, wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, for kids, these tubers were like free candy. A fun-to-find snack, especially during times of scarcity. What they might not have known is that they were actually munching on little survival packs.
Survival packs, how so?
Those tubers actually store water and nutrients,
Oh,
helping the fern endure droughts.
wow. So if you were ever lost in the mountains and thirsty, those pheasant eggs could be a lifesaver.
That's a pretty amazing survival tip, right?
It is. I'm still really curious about these names, though. Chigilan, Zutzalan, they're so descriptive and evocative. Is there more to the story there?
You know, it's easy to overlook ferns in our modern world, but they hold these valuable clues to the past.
Yeah.
And the names we use for them can actually tell a story about the people who have interacted with them over centuries.
That's a really good point.
Yeah.
So what can these specific names tell us about the Hakka people and their relationship with ferns?
Well, I think it highlights the importance of observation and connection to nature in Hakka culture. You know, people didn't just see a plant. They saw a pheasant egg hidden beneath the soil, or heard a chicken call leading them to a tasty treat.
Right.
These names reflect a deep understanding of the plant's characteristics and its role in the ecosystem.
Yeah.
And the fact that the Hakka language has such a rich vocabulary for ferns speaks volumes.
Yeah, it's like their language evolved alongside their close relationship with these plants. Makes you wonder if there are any other hidden meanings or stories embedded in those names.
It's a great question, and it's one that, etymologists and anthropologists are still exploring. The Hakka language, with its rich vocabulary for ferns, offers a glimpse into the cultural significance of these plants. Hakka communities have long relied on ferns for food, medicine, and building materials, so it's no surprise that their language reflects this close connection.
Yeah, it really underscores how language isn't just about words. It's about preserving cultural heritage and understanding our place in the natural world.
Absolutely. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, we can see how ferns offer a unique perspective on the interplay between human societies and their environment.
So how do ferns fit into that bigger picture? What can they teach us about sustainability and resilience?
Well, just think about the pheasant egg fern and its ability to survive droughts thanks to those water-storing tubers.
Yeah.
That's a lesson in adaptation and resourcefulness that we can learn from.
It's like nature's built-in survival kit.
Exactly. And it makes me wonder how we can apply those lessons to our own lives, especially as we face challenges like climate change and resource scarcity. It really is amazing how these plants have adapted and thrived for so long. It makes you wonder what other secrets they hold.
That's the beauty of studying nature, right? There's always more to discover. Speaking of secrets, let's delve into the fascinating world of fern morphology.
Okay, I'll admit, I'm no botanist, but I'm ready to be wowed. What makes ferns so structurally unique?
Well, for starters, they reproduce in a completely different way than many other plants. Ferns don't produce flowers or seeds. Instead, they rely on spores.
Spores? You mean those tiny specks we often see on the underside of fern fronds?
Exactly. Those spores are incredibly tiny and light, which allows them to be dispersed by the wind over long distances. This is one of the reasons why ferns have been so successful at colonizing such a diverse range of habitats.
So it's like they have their own miniature air force, spreading their genetic material far and wide. But how do those tiny spores actually grow into new ferns? I mean, they're so small, it's hard to imagine them becoming those lush plants we see.
That's where things get even more interesting. When a spore lands in a suitable environment, it doesn't directly develop into a familiar fern plant. Instead, it grows into a tiny, heart-shaped structure called a ganophyte.
A gamedophyte? That sounds almost alien.
It is quite remarkable. The gadophyte is a completely separate generation in the fern's life cycle. Think of it like a butterfly's caterpillar stage before it transforms into the fern we recognize. It's a bit like a fern's teenage phase.
I like that analogy.
The gamedophyte produces both male and female reproductive cells, which then fuse to form a zygote that eventually grows into the fern plant we're all familiar with.
Wow, it's amazing how much complexity is packed into something as seemingly simple as a fern. It's like a secret hidden stage of life. And it makes you wonder, is the gamedophyte vulnerable at this stage? Does this make fern reproduction more challenging?
It certainly does. The gamedophyte is quite delicate and requires specific conditions to survive. This is one of the reasons why ferns often thrive in moist, shady environments. But their unique reproductive strategy has allowed them to thrive for over 360 million years. I mean, they were around even before the dinosaurs roamed the earth.
That's mind-blowing. So while we might think of ferns as these delicate, almost whimsical plants, they're actually